The year was 2375, a time when humanity had clawed its way back from the brink of extinction. Centuries of war, environmental collapse, and near self-destruction had left Earth scarred but not defeated. Slowly, painfully, the planet began to heal. Forests reclaimed barren lands, oceans teemed with life once more, and cities rebuilt themselves with towering green spires that reached for the heavens. Humanity had learned its lesson, or so it seemed. But now, a new threat loomed in the cold expanse of space. The Galactic Empire, an alliance of advanced alien civilizations, had turned its gaze toward Earth. To them, Earth wasn't a home or a sanctuary. It was a resource-rich rock floating in the void, ripe for exploitation. And they weren't interested in negotiation. Jacob Hayes sat alone in his dimly lit office aboard Luna Base 1, staring at the holographic map hovering above his desk. It showed Earth surrounded by red markers, each one representing an imperial, mining vessel, scout ship, or military cruiser. His fingers tapped nervously on the armrest of his chair as he tried to process what he'd just been told. Rachel Dawson, a scientist stationed on Mars, had sent him classified data intercepted from Imperial Communications. According to her analysis, the Empire planned to use experimental technology to strip mine Earth's core, extracting every ounce of valuable material until there was nothing left. If they succeeded, the planet would crumble like an empty shell, leaving billions dead and centuries of progress erased in an instant. Jacob sighed deeply, running a hand through his short gray hair. He was a man who carried the weight of the world, or rather worlds, on his shoulders. As a diplomat for the United Nations Space Council, he had spent decades negotiating treaties, mediating disputes, and trying to keep the fragile peace between Earth's fractured nations, but this was different. This wasn't about politics or economics, this was survival. He leaned back in his chair, closing his eyes for a moment. When he opened them again, his expression hardened. There was no room for hesitation, no time for doubt. Whatever happened next, humanity couldn't face it divided. They needed to act, and fast. Rachel's transmission had included coordinates for a secret meeting point near the Martian research facility where she worked. Jacob knew he had to go there personally. Whatever information she had uncovered could be the key to stopping the Empire before it was too late. But traveling to Mars wouldn't be easy, especially with Imperial patrols prowling the solar system. Every jump through hyperspace carried risks, and even the safest routes were far from guaranteed. As he prepared to leave, Jacob couldn't shake the feeling that this mission might very well cost him everything. Still, he reminded himself why he did what he did. Somewhere out there, beyond the stars, was hope, a chance to protect the future of humanity. That thought kept him moving forward, even when the odds felt insurmountable. The journey to Mars took 2 days, during which Jacob barely slept. The small shuttlecraft rattled and groaned as it navigated asteroid fields and avoided detection by cloaking itself whenever possible. By the time he arrived at the designated rendezvous point, exhaustion lined his face, but determination burned in his eyes. Rachel was waiting for him inside a makeshift lab carved into the side of a Martian canyon. She was younger than he expected, perhaps in her early 30s, with sharp features and an intensity that matched his own. Her dark hair was tied back in a tight ponytail, and her lab coat was smudged with grease and dirt. Despite her disheveled appearance, she radiated confidence. "You made it," she said as Jacob stepped inside, brushing past stacks of equipment and glowing monitors. "I wasn't sure you'd come." "I didn't have much of a choice," Jacob replied, setting down his bag. "What do you have for me?" Rachel gestured toward a large screen mounted on the wall. With a few quick taps on her tablet, she brought up a series of images and graphs. "This is what we've managed to decode so far," she explained. "It's fragmentary, but the gist is clear. The Empire has developed something called the Core Extraction Array, a device capable of drilling straight through a planet's crust and extracting its core materials. Think of it as a giant vacuum cleaner, except instead of sucking up dust, it sucks up entire layers of a planet's interior." Jacob frowned, studying the schematics. "And they plan to use this thing on Earth?" They're already preparing, Rachel confirmed. We've detected increased activity around several key points in our orbit. Ships are positioning themselves for optimal access. If we don't stop them, they'll start drilling within weeks. But why? Jacob asked, shaking his head. Why target us? We're just one planet among trillions. Surely there are easier targets. Rachel hesitated, then lowered her voice. That's the thing. They don't see us as equals. To them, we're primitives, savages, who haven't earned the right to exist alongside civilized species. Stripping Earth bare isn't just about resources, it's a statement. A warning to anyone else who dares defy the Empire. Jacob clenched his fists, anger bubbling beneath the surface. So we're supposed to sit here and let them destroy us? Just roll over and die because they say so? No, Rachel said, firmly. That's why I called you. You're one of the few people who can rally Earth's leaders, unite them under a single cause. We need to send a message to the Empire, one they can't ignore. A message? Jacob echoed, raising an eyebrow. What kind of message? Rachel smiled grimly. An ultimatum. We declare ourselves off limits. Tell them that if they try to touch Earth, we'll fight back with everything we've got. Jacob stared at her, stunned. You realize how insane? That sounds right. We're talking about an empire that spans galaxies. They have weapons we can't even comprehend. What makes you think they'll listen to us? Because we have no other choice. Rachel shot back. If we don't stand up to them now, they'll walk all over us. They'll take what they want, leave us in ruins, and move on to the next planet without batting an eye. Is that really the legacy you want to leave behind? Jacob didn't answer immediately. Instead, he turned away, pacing the length of the lab as he mulled over her words. She was right, of course. Surrendering wasn't an option, not if they wanted to preserve any semblance of freedom. But declaring war on the Galactic Empire? It was madness. Suicide, even. Yet, as he looked at the holographic image of Earth spinning silently on the screen, something stirred within him. Hope, maybe. Or perhaps stubbornness. Either way, he knew what he had to do. All right, he said, finally turning back to Rachel. Let's do it. But we're going to need help, a lot of it. Rachel nodded, relief washing over her face. I figured as much. That's why I've already started putting together a team. People who can get the job done, no matter the cost. Jacob raised an eyebrow. Who are we talking about? She grinned, pulling up another set of files on the screen. Meet your new crew. The first profile that popped up belonged to Olivia Carter, a strategist known for her unconventional methods and razor-sharp mind. Next came Daniel "Danny" Brooks, a hot-headed pilot whose skills were unmatched despite his reckless tendencies. Then there was Emily Grant, a linguist specializing in deciphering alien languages, and Marcus Lee, a grizzled engineer who could build miracles out of scraps. Jacob studied each profile carefully, noting their strengths and weaknesses. Individually, they were impressive. Together, they might just stand a chance. Good, he said, nodding slowly. We'll need every advantage we can get. But remember, this isn't just about us. It's about everyone back home. Billions of lives are counting on us to pull this off. Rachel placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. We'll make them proud, Jacob. I promise. For the first time in days, Jacob allowed himself a small smile. The road ahead would be long and dangerous, filled with uncertainty and peril. But as he stood there, surrounded by the beginnings of a rebellion, he felt a flicker of hope. Maybe, just maybe, they could win this fight after all. Jacob Hayes stood in the dimly lit hangar of Luna Base 1, staring at the hulking silhouette of their chosen vessel, the Eclipse. It wasn't much to look at. Decades of service had left its metallic hull pockmarked with dents and scorch marks, and its engines sputtered faintly as technicians ran final diagnostics. Once upon a time, the Eclipse had been a proud starship, part of Earth's fledgling fleet during humanity's first ventures into deep space. Now it was little more than a relic, a decommissioned warhorse brought out of retirement for one last desperate mission. But Jacob didn't care about appearances. What mattered was that the Eclipse could still fly and fight if necessary. With the Galactic Empire breathing down Earth's neck, every advantage counted, no matter how small or battered it might be. Olivia Carter arrived just as the sun began to rise over the lunar horizon, casting long shadows across the hangar floor. She moved with purpose, her boots clicking sharply against the metal grating beneath her feet. Her dark hair was tied back in a tight braid, and her sharp green eyes scanned the room with an intensity that made people instinctively step aside. She carried herself like someone who knew exactly what she wanted and how to get it. "You're late," Jacob said without turning around. His tone was dry but not unkind. "I had to double-check some calculations," Olivia replied smoothly, joining him near the ship. "This isn't exactly a pleasure cruise, you know." Jacob smirked faintly. "You think I don't know that?" Olivia crossed her arms, tilting her head as she studied the eclipse. "It'll do. Barely. But we'll need to make modifications before we leave. Extra shielding, upgraded weapon systems, maybe even a cloaking device if we can scrounge one up." "Already on it," Jacob assured her. "The tech team is working overtime. We should have everything ready within the hour." "Good." Olivia nodded approvingly, then turned to face him fully. "Now about the crew. Have they all checked in yet?" Jacob gestured toward the far end of the hangar, where 3 figures were gathered near a makeshift table littered with maps and data pads. "They're waiting for us." Olivia followed his gaze, her expression softening slightly as she took in the sight of their ragtag team. First, there was Daniel "Danny" Brooks, leaning casually against the table with a cocky grin plastered across his face. His tousled blonde hair fell into his bright blue eyes, which sparkled with mischief. He looked more like a troublemaker than a seasoned pilot, but Jacob had seen him in action during training exercises. The man was fearless and absurdly talented behind the controls of a starship. Next to Danny sat Emily Grant, her nose buried in a thick data book filled with alien symbols and cryptic notes. Her glasses slid down her nose as she flipped through pages rapidly, pausing occasionally to jot something down in the margins. Emily's quiet demeanor belied her brilliance. She was arguably the most valuable member of the team when it came to understanding the complexities of alien cultures and languages. Finally, there was Marcus Lee, seated cross-legged on the floor while tinkering with a piece of machinery he'd salvaged from somewhere. His muscular frame and calloused hands spoke of years spent working in shipyards and repair docks, while his grizzled beard gave him the air of a man who'd seen too much and cared too little. Yet, despite his rough exterior, Marcus had a reputation for being fiercely loyal to those who earned his trust. "They seem capable," Olivia observed after a moment. "They are," Jacob confirmed. "Each of them brings something unique to the table. And right now, we need everyone pulling their weight." Together they approached the group, drawing curious glances from all 3 members. Danny straightened up immediately, flashing a lopsided smile. "Hey boss, ready to save the world?" "Not quite yet," Jacob replied wryly. "We've got work to do first." Marcus set aside his gadget and stood brushing dust off his pants. "What's the plan?" Jacob gestured for everyone to gather closer. "Here's the situation. The Galactic Empire has already started positioning ships around Earth. If we don't act quickly, they'll begin mining operations within weeks. Our goal is to deliver Earth's ultimatum directly to the heart of the Empire, to their central hub in the Andromeda cluster." Emily adjusted her glasses, frowning slightly. "That's insane. Even with upgraded systems, the Eclipse isn't built for long-range travel, not to mention the fact that we'll be flying straight into enemy territory." "I never said this would be easy," Jacob admitted, "but it's our only shot. If we can reach the Empire's leadership and force them to listen, maybe, just maybe, we can buy ourselves enough time to prepare for whatever comes next." "And if they don't listen?" Marcus asked bluntly. "Then we fight," Olivia interjected, her voice firm. "We'll do whatever it takes to protect Earth. That's why we're here." Danny grinned, cracking his knuckles. "Sounds like my kind of mission." Emily sighed, shaking her head. "This is going to end badly." "Maybe," Jacob acknowledged, "but sitting around doing nothing guarantees failure. Are you with me, or aren't you?" There was a brief pause as each member of the team exchanged glances. Then one by one they nodded. All right, Jacob said, allowing himself a small smile. Let's get to work. The next few hours passed in a blur of activity. Technicians swarmed over the Eclipse, reinforcing its hull, upgrading its weapons array, and installing a rudimentary cloaking device scavenged from an old prototype. Meanwhile, Olivia coordinated logistics, mapping out potential routes and identifying safe zones where they could refuel and resupply without attracting unwanted attention. Danny spent most of his time familiarizing himself with the ship's controls, muttering under his breath as he tested various maneuvers in simulation mode. Emily immersed herself in decoding intercepted Imperial communications, searching for any clues that might give them an edge. And Marcus worked tirelessly in the engine room, coaxing extra power from the aging reactors and ensuring every bolt was tightened securely. By the time evening fell, the Eclipse was as ready as it would ever be. Jacob called the team together for a final briefing before departure. We'll launch at dawn, he announced, pacing slowly in front of them. Our first stop will be Proxima Centauri Station. It's neutral ground, so we shouldn't encounter any trouble there. From there, we'll chart a course toward the Andromeda Cluster. But be warned, the closer we get to Imperial space, the higher the risk. What about patrols? Danny asked, raising an eyebrow. Won't they spot us eventually? That's why we have the cloak, Olivia explained. As long as we stay disciplined and avoid unnecessary risks, we should be able to slip past them unnoticed. And if we don't, Marcus pressed. Then, we improvise, Jacob replied evenly. We adapt, overcome, and keep moving forward. No matter what happens, our mission remains the same. Deliver Earth's ultimatum and return home safely. The weight of his words hung heavy in the air, but no one argued. They all understood the stakes. As the meeting broke up, Emily lingered behind, clutching her data book tightly to her chest. Do you really think this will work? She asked quietly. Jacob hesitated, choosing his words carefully. I don't know, but I believe in us, in this team. If anyone can pull this off, it's us. Emily managed a weak smile. I hope you're right. With that, she turned and walked away, leaving Jacob alone with his thoughts. He gazed out at the Eclipse, its battered frame silhouetted against the stars beyond the hangar doors. For a fleeting moment, doubt crept into his mind. Was this truly the best chance humanity had? Or were they simply delaying the inevitable? But then he remembered Rachel Dawson's words back on Mars. If we don't stand up to them now, they'll walk all over us. She was right. Humanity couldn't afford to cower in fear, not anymore. This mission wasn't just about survival. It was about proving that Earth wouldn't go quietly into the night. Tomorrow they would take their first step toward that future. Whatever lay ahead, Jacob knew one thing for certain. They wouldn't face it alone. The Eclipse hummed softly as it sailed through the endless expanse of space, its engine steady but strained under the weight of their mission. The crew had settled into a rhythm of sorts, Danny at the helm, guiding them through hyperspace, with practiced ease. Marcus in the engine room, tinkering endlessly to keep the aging systems running. Emily buried in her work, deciphering alien languages and piecing together fragments of intercepted communications, and Olivia, pacing the bridge, poring over star charts and calculating their next moves. Jacob, meanwhile, kept watch over everything, his sharp eyes scanning for any sign of trouble. For a while, things were quiet. Too quiet. The silence stretched on, broken only by the occasional beep of equipment or the faint creak of metal. It was almost peaceful, a stark contrast to the chaos they'd left behind on Earth. But peace, they all knew, was an illusion in the vastness of space. Trouble could find them at any moment. And it did. It started with a flicker, a brief, almost imperceptible fluctuation in the ship's power grid. Marcus noticed it first, his keen ears picking up the faint hum of something off-kilter. He cursed under his breath and grabbed his toolkit, climbing down into the belly of the ship to investigate. What he found wasn't good. One of the reactors was overheating, its core temperature creeping dangerously close to critical levels. This thing's about to blow, Marcus muttered, wiping sweat from his brow as he worked frantically to stabilize the system. We need to shut it down before it fries the whole ship. Up on the bridge, alarms began to blare. Jacob rushed to the engineering console, his face tightening with worry. "What's going on?" he demanded. "Reactor issue," Marcus replied tersely over the comms. "I'm trying to fix it, but we might lose power temporarily." "Temporary power loss is the least of our problems," Olivia interjected sharply. She pointed at the navigation screen where 3 ominous red dots had appeared. "We've got company." Jacob's stomach sank. "Imperial ships?" "Looks like it," Danny confirmed, his usual bravado replaced by a grim seriousness. "They're closing fast." "How did they find us?" Emily asked, her voice trembling slightly. "The cloak should have hidden us." "They must have upgraded their sensors," Olivia said, her tone clipped. "Or maybe the reactor flare gave us away." "We don't have time to figure it out," Jacob snapped. "Marcus, how much longer until you can stabilize the reactor?" "Give me 5 minutes," Marcus shouted back, his voice strained. "We don't have 5 minutes," Danny shot back, his fingers flying across the controls. "Those ships will be on top of us in 2. "Then get us out of here," Jacob ordered. "Now." Danny didn't hesitate. With a flick of his wrist, he disengaged the autopilot and took manual control of the Eclipse, and the ship lurched violently as he yanked the controls hard to starboard, narrowly avoiding a collision with an asteroid that had suddenly loomed out of the darkness. The Imperial ships followed suit, their sleek forms cutting through space like knives. "Hold on tight," Danny yelled, grinning despite the danger. "This is gonna get bumpy." The chase was on. The Eclipse darted through the void, weaving between chunks of rock and debris as the patrol ships pursued relentlessly. Ornigio. Lights flashed across the bridge and alarms screamed in a deafening chorus. Jacob gripped the railing tightly, his knuckles white as he watched the chaos unfold. "Watch it," Marcus barked over the comms. "You're pushing the engines too hard." "I'm doing what I have to do," Danny shot back, his grin widening. Even as sweat dripped down his face. "Trust me, I've got this." Behind them, the Imperial ships fired a volley of energy blasts. One struck the edge of the Eclipse's hull, sending sparks flying and causing the entire ship to shudder. Emily stumbled, nearly dropping her databook, while Olivia clung to the console for support. "We can't take many more hits like that," Jacob shouted. "Then give me some cover," Danny retorted, swerving sharply to avoid another blast. "I'm working on it." Marcus finally managed to stabilize the reactor, though not without cost. The ship's cloaking device flickered and died, leaving them fully exposed. "Cloak's offline," he announced grimly. "We're sitting ducks out here." "Not if I have anything to say about it," Danny muttered, his focus absolute. Spotting a narrow gap between 2 massive asteroids, he gunned the engines and sent the Eclipse hurtling through the opening. The patrol ships attempted to follow but collided with each other in the process, sending shards of metal spiraling into space. "Yes," Danny whooped triumphantly, pumping his fist in the air. "That's how it's done." "Don't celebrate yet," Jacob warned, his voice tense. "They'll regroup and come after us again." "He's right," Olivia added, pointing at the navigation screen. "Look, they're spreading out. They're trying to flank us." Sure enough, the remaining patrol ships had split up, surrounding the Eclipse from multiple angles. Trapped, the crew braced themselves for the worst. But then Emily spoke up, her voice calm but urgent. "There's an ion storm ahead," she said, pointing at a swirling mass of purple and green energy on the screen. "If we fly into it, it'll disrupt their sensors and weapons. We might be able to lose them." "It's risky," Jacob said, frowning. "Ion storms can fry our systems just as easily as theirs." "It's our only shot," Olivia countered. "Unless you've got a better idea." Jacob hesitated for a moment, then nodded. "Do it, Danny. Take us in." "You heard the man," Danny replied, steering the Eclipse toward the storm. As they entered, the ship was immediately buffeted by violent electrical currents. Lights flickered, consoles sparked, and the entire vessel groaned under the strain. But the plan worked. The patrol ships fell back, unable to withstand the storm's intensity. "We did it," Emily breathed, clutching her databook to her chest. "They're gone. For now." Jacob reminded them, his expression grim. Let's not make the same mistake twice. Once we're clear, we need to stay off their radar. As the Eclipse emerged from the storm battered but intact, the crew allowed themselves a brief moment of relief. Marcus patched up the damage as best he could, while Olivia recalibrated their course to avoid further patrols. Danny leaned back in his chair, letting out a low whistle. That was intense. No kidding, Marcus grunted, tossing his rag aside. Next time, try not to tear the ship apart while you're showing off. Hey, I saved us, didn't I? Danny shot back, grinning. Admit it, you'd be toast without me. Enough, Jacob interrupted, cutting off the banter before it escalated. We're alive, and that's what matters. But we can't afford to let our guard down. Not for a second. The reminder sobered everyone quickly. They had escaped, for now. But the Galactic Empire wasn't going to give up so easily. Every jump through hyperspace brought them closer to their goal, but also deeper into enemy territory. The stakes were higher than ever, and failure wasn't an option. Their next stop was Proxima Centauri Station, a sprawling hub of activity, teeming with traders, mercenaries, and wanderers from across the galaxy. To the casual observer, it was just another waypoint on the Galactic Highway, a place to refuel, resupply, and move on. For Jacob and his team, however, it represented a crucial opportunity to gather intelligence and prepare for the challenges ahead. While Marcus and Danny worked tirelessly to repair the Eclipse, Olivia and Emily ventured into the station to scout for information. The air was thick with the mingling scents of exotic foods and strange spices, and alien languages filled the corridors in a cacophony of sound. Despite the vibrant atmosphere, both women remained cautious, knowing that danger could be lurking around every corner. At one point, they overheard a group of traders discussing recent Imperial movements. Emily recognized key phrases and jotted down notes furiously, her heart racing as she pieced together snippets of valuable intel. They're expanding their patrols, she whispered to Olivia. Word is they're cracking down on unauthorized vessels entering Imperial space. That's not good, Olivia replied, her expression darkening. If they tighten security, we'll never make it to Andromeda. We'll find a way, Emily said firmly, though doubt lingered in her eyes. We have to. Back aboard the Eclipse. The team reconvened to share what they'd learned. Jacob listened intently, his brow furrowed in thought. It sounds like we're running out of time, he concluded. We'll need to move faster and riskier than planned. And hope luck stays on our side, Danny added, leaning back in his chair. Because if it doesn't, we're screwed. Jacob gave him a wry smile. Luck is part of it, but skill and determination are what'll get us through. As the Eclipse prepared to leave Proxima Centauri, the crew felt a renewed sense of purpose. They had faced their first real test and survived. But deep down, they knew the hardest challenges lay ahead. The Galactic Empire wasn't going to let them slip through its grasp so easily. Every jump through hyperspace brought them closer to their goal and closer to the unknown dangers that awaited them. Yet, even as fear gnawed at the edges of their resolve, a spark of determination burned within each of them. They weren't fighting just for themselves. They were fighting for Earth, for billions of lives depending on their success. Whatever came next, they would face it together. The Eclipse drifted silently through the cold, dark reaches of space, its battered hull reflecting the faint light of distant stars. Inside, the crew moved with a quiet urgency, each member focused on their tasks as they prepared for the next leg of their journey. The ship's systems hummed softly, masking the tension that hung heavy in the air. They had escaped the Imperial patrol ships at Proxima Centauri, but everyone knew it was only a matter of time before they encountered more trouble. The closer they got to the Galactic Empire's territory, the tighter the net would close around them. Jacob stood on the bridge, staring out at the endless expanse of stars. His mind raced with questions and doubts. Were they doing the right thing? Could Earth really stand against the might of an empire that spanned galaxies? He clenched his fists tightly, forcing himself to push such thoughts aside. There was no room for second-guessing now. Every decision they made could mean the difference between success and failure wasn't an option. Danny sat at the helm, idly tapping buttons on the control panel while keeping an eye on the navigation screen. Despite the danger they were in, he seemed oddly relaxed, his usual cocky grin plastered across his face. "You know," he said casually, breaking the silence, "if we pull this off, we'll be legends." "Legends or corpses?" Marcus grunted from where he was checking the engine diagnostics. "Either way, people will remember us." "That's the spirit." Danny laughed, though his tone carried a hint of unease. Even he couldn't ignore the weight of what they were trying to do. Emily hovered nearby, her nose buried in her databook, as she pored over intercepted communications. Her fingers flew across the pages, translating alien symbols into something resembling coherent sentences. She had been working non-stop since they left Proxima Centauri, determined to uncover any scrap of information that might give them an edge. "There's something here," she murmured suddenly, her voice catching everyone's attention. "What is it?" Jacob asked, stepping closer. Emily adjusted her glasses, pointing at a line of text on the screen. "It's a fragment of an Imperial transmission. They're talking about reinforcements. A fleet is being sent to patrol the border zones near Andromeda." "How big is the fleet?" Olivia asked sharply, joining them. "I don't know yet," Emily admitted, "but it sounds significant. If we run into them, we won't stand a chance." "We'll cross that bridge when we come to it," Jacob said firmly. "For now, focus on decoding anything else you can find. Every bit of intel helps." Emily nodded, returning to her work with renewed determination. But the news weighed heavily on everyone. The Galactic Empire wasn't just watching, they were preparing for war, and the eclipse was flying straight into the heart of it. Hours later, the ship entered the outer edges of Imperial territory. The transition was subtle but unmistakable. The stars seemed dimmer here, swallowed by the oppressive presence of the Empire's vast dominion. Ships of all sizes drifted past, their sleek designs and glowing insignias marking them as part of the Imperial fleet. It was a stark reminder of the power they were up against. "Cloak's holding steady," Olivia reported, her eyes glued to the sensor readings. "But we need to stay alert. One wrong move and they'll spot us." "Got it," Danny replied, his hands gripping the controls tightly. "I'll keep us clear of anything that looks like trouble." As they ventured deeper, the tension aboard, the eclipse grew palpable. Every passing minute felt like an eternity, each breath drawn with care. Then, without warning, the ship shuddered violently, throwing everyone off balance. "What was that?" Marcus demanded, stumbling onto the bridge. "A tractor beam," Olivia said grimly, her gaze fixed on the console. "They've locked onto us." Jacob's heart sank. "How?" "The cloak must have failed," Emily whispered, her face pale. "We didn't notice." "Well, we notice now," Danny muttered, frantically working to break free of the beam. "Hold on tight." The eclipse lurched again as Danny pushed the engines to their limit, but the beam held firm, dragging them inexorably toward a massive Imperial cruiser. Its towering form loomed ahead, bristling with weapons and glowing with ominous energy. "Marcus, get down to the engine room," Jacob ordered. "See if you can boost power to the shields. We're going to need them." "On it," Marcus shouted, disappearing below deck. "Olivia, any ideas?" Jacob asked, turning to her. She hesitated, then nodded. "If we can overload the cloak's generator, it might create enough interference to disrupt the beam. But it's risky. It could fry half the ship's systems." "Do it," Jacob said without hesitation. "We don't have a choice." Olivia sprang into action, her fingers flying across the console as she rerouted power to the cloak. The ship groaned in protest, sparks flying from overloaded circuits. Then with a deafening crackle, the cloak surged to life one final time, enveloping the eclipse in a blinding flash of light. For a moment, everything went silent. The tractor beam released its grip, and the eclipse shot forward, free once more. But the victory was short-lived. The sudden surge had damaged critical systems, leaving the ship limping and vulnerable. "We're not out of the woods yet," Danny said, his voice tense. "That cruiser's still out there and it's pissed." "Then let's not stick around to chat." Jacob replied. Get us out of here. Danny didn't need to be told twice. With expert precision, he steered the Eclipse into a narrow gap between two asteroids, using the debris field as cover. Behind them, the Imperial cruiser fired a volley of energy blasts, narrowly missing their tail. The crew held their breath as the ship rattled and groaned under the strain, but somehow they managed to slip away. When they finally emerged on the other side, the cruiser was gone. For now, they were safe. Back on the bridge, the team regrouped, their faces etched with exhaustion and relief. Marcus appeared last, wiping grease from his hands. How bad is it? Jacob asked. Bad enough, Marcus replied. We lost primary thrusters and most of our weapons. Shields are barely holding together. This bucket of bolts won't survive another fight. We'll fix it, Olivia said firmly. We have to. Jacob nodded, turning to address the group. Good work, everyone. That was too close. From now on, we avoid direct confrontations at all costs. Stealth is our best weapon. And if stealth doesn't work? Danny asked, raising an eyebrow. Then we improvise, Jacob answered simply. Like we always do. Later that night, Emily sat alone in the corner of the bridge, staring at the cracked screen of her data book. The glow of the display illuminated her tired face as she scrolled through lines of alien text. Something about the intercepted transmissions bothered her. Something she couldn't quite put her finger on. There was a pattern there, hidden beneath layers of code and cipher. If she could just crack it. Her thoughts were interrupted by a soft voice. Still working? She looked up to see Olivia standing nearby, her arms crossed and her expression unreadable. Yeah, Emily replied sheepishly. I can't shake the feeling that there's something important here. Something we're missing. Olivia nodded slowly. Trust your instincts. You've gotten us this far. I just wish I could do more, Emily admitted, frustration creeping into her voice. Everyone else has a role. Danny flies the ship. Marcus keeps it running. You strategize. But me? All I do is sit here and read. You're wrong, Olivia said firmly. Without you, we wouldn't even understand half of what we're up against. Your work is crucial. Don't forget that. Emily managed a small smile, gratitude washing over her. Thanks, I needed to hear that. As Olivia walked away, Emily returned to her work with renewed focus. She wasn't just deciphering codes. She was piecing together the puzzle that might save Earth. And she refused to give up, not until every last piece fell into place. The Eclipse continued its journey, limping through space like a wounded bird. Ahead lay the heart of the Galactic Empire, a fortress of power and authority that dwarfed anything humanity had ever faced. But aboard the ship, a spark of defiance burned brightly. They were outnumbered, outgunned, and outmatched. But they weren't beaten yet. Whatever came next, they would face it together. The Eclipse drifted through the shadowy outskirts of Imperial space, its damaged systems struggling to keep it operational. The crew worked tirelessly to patch up the ship, their movements mechanical and weary from days of constant strain. Jacob stood on the bridge, his eyes scanning the navigation screen as he plotted their next move. The Galactic Empire's central hub loomed ahead, a massive structure orbiting a dying star in the Andromeda cluster. It was a fortress of power, bristling with defenses and teeming with ships that dwarfed the Eclipse. To approach it directly would be suicide. We can't just waltz in there, Olivia said, breaking the tense silence. She leaned over the console, her sharp green eyes flickering between the map and Jacob. Even if we manage to avoid detection, they'll crush us the moment we show our faces. I know, Jacob replied, his voice low but steady. But we don't have a choice. We need to deliver Earth's ultimatum, and we need to make sure everyone hears it. Danny, who had been slouched in the pilot's chair, sat up straighter. You're talking about broadcasting it, aren't you? Sending it out across all channels so the whole galaxy gets the message. Exactly, Jacob confirmed. If we can get the word out before they stop us, it might buy us enough time to get close to the leadership. Force them to listen. Marcus emerged from below deck, wiping his hands on a rag. And how do you plan to pull that off without getting blown to bits? That's where stealth comes in, Olivia interjected. We've still got partial cloaking capability. If we can position ourselves near one of their communication hubs, we can hijack their network and send the message without being detected. For about 5 seconds, Marcus muttered. Then every ship in the system will be gunning for us. It's a risk, Jacob admitted. But it's the only way. Once the message is out, it won't matter if they destroy us. The entire galaxy will know what Earth stands for, and what the Empire is willing to do to crush us. Emily, who had been quietly observing the conversation, spoke up hesitantly. There's another problem. The Empire controls the communication networks. Even if we hijack one, they'll try to block or distort the message before it reaches anyone. We'll encrypt it, Olivia said confidently. Use a frequency modulation pattern they won't recognize. By the time they figure it out, it'll already be too late. Emily nodded slowly, though her expression remained uncertain. I can help with the encryption, but it'll take time. We don't have much of that, Jacob reminded her gently. Work fast. The team sprang into action, each member focusing on their part of the plan. Danny fine-tuned the ship's trajectory, steering them toward a cluster of relay stations orbiting the central hub. These stations served as the backbone of the Empire's communication network, funneling messages across vast distances in real time. If they could tap into one of these stations, they could amplify their signal far beyond what the Eclipse's limited systems could achieve. Meanwhile, Emily and Olivia huddled over a makeshift workstation, piecing together the encryption algorithm. Emily's fingers flew across the keyboard, her mind racing as she translated complex alien codes into something usable. Olivia monitored the process, double-checking every line of code to ensure there were no vulnerabilities. The two women worked in near silence, their concentration absolute. In the engine room, Marcus labored to stabilize the ship's failing systems. Sparks flew as he welded loose connections and rerouted power to critical components. His hands moved, with practiced precision, but sweat dripped down his face as he pushed himself to the limit. Come on, you piece of junk, he muttered under his breath. Don't give up on me now. On the bridge, Jacob kept watch, his eyes darting between the navigation screen and the sensor readings. The closer they got to the relay stations, the more nervous he became. Every passing second felt like an eternity, the weight of their mission pressing down on him. He knew the risks, they all did, but that didn't make it any easier. Finally, after hours of painstaking work, the team was ready. The Eclipse slipped into position near one of the relay stations, its cloaking device holding steady despite the strain. Olivia activated the hacking program, her fingers flying across the console as she bypassed layer after layer of security protocols. The station's systems resisted at first, triggering alarms that threatened to expose their presence. But Olivia's expertise prevailed, and within moments they had access. Encryption online, Emily announced, her voice tight with tension. Message queued and ready to transmit. Jacob took a deep breath, stepping forward to address the crew. This is it. Once we send this, there's no turning back. No pressure, Danny quipped, though his grin was noticeably forced. Just the fate of humanity riding on our shoulders. Let's do it, Jacob said firmly, nodding at Olivia. She hit the transmit button. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, the relay station lit up, its powerful transmitters flooding the surrounding space with Earth's ultimatum. The message was simple yet bold. Earth declares itself off limits. Any attempt to interfere will be met with resistance. It echoed across every channel, reaching planets, ships, and colonies throughout the galaxy. The reaction was immediate and explosive. Back on the bridge, alarms blared as dozens of red dots appeared on the navigation screen. Imperial ships mobilized instantly, converging on their position like a swarm of angry bees. The Eclipse shuddered violently as a barrage of energy blasts struck its weakened shields. They found us, Danny shouted, gripping the controls tightly. Hold on! The ship lurched sideways as Danny yanked the helm hard, dodging another volley of fire. The crew scrambled to stay upright, their earlier triumph overshadowed by the chaos erupting around them. Shields are down to 20%, Olivia yelled, her voice rising above the din. We can't take much more of this. Get us out of here. Jacob ordered, bracing himself against the railing. Danny didn't hesitate. With a roar of defiance, he sent the Eclipse hurtling into a nearby asteroid field, using the jagged rocks as cover. Behind them, the Imperial ships gave chase, their weapons blazing. Explosions rocked the void as stray blasts struck asteroids, sending shards of debris spiraling into space. "We're not going to make it," Marcus barked, appearing on the bridge. "The engines are overheating." "Keep it together," Jacob snapped, his voice cutting through the panic. "We've come too far to fail now." Danny gritted his teeth, pushing the ship to its absolute limits. He swerved and spun, narrowly avoiding collisions as the asteroids closed in around them. The Imperial ships struggled to follow, their larger forms unable to navigate the tight spaces. One by one, they fell back, leaving the Eclipse battered but alive. When they finally emerged on the other side, the pursuing fleet was gone. For now they were safe. Back aboard the ship, the crew collapsed into their seats, exhaustion washing over them. Their relief was tempered by the knowledge that they had only delayed the inevitable. The Empire wouldn't stop hunting them, not after what they had done. Jacob turned to the group, his expression grim but resolute. "The message is out. The galaxy knows what's at stake. Now it's up to us to finish what we started." Danny smirked faintly, leaning back in his chair. "Piece of cake." Marcus rolled his eyes. "Yeah, right. Next time, let's try not to almost die." Despite the sarcasm, there was a shared sense of pride among them. They had faced overwhelming odds and succeeded, against all expectations. The message had been delivered, and the seeds of rebellion had been planted. Whatever came next, they would face it together. As the Eclipse limped onward, its battered frame silhouetted against the stars, hope flickered like a small flame in the darkness. The fight was far from over, but for the first time, they weren't alone. Across the galaxy, whispers of dissent began to spread, carried by the words of Earth's defiant ultimatum. The Galactic Empire had been challenged, and the universe would never be the same again.